All right, welcome back to the station. We have a great program today, and we have the privilege of interviewing some of the candidates for governor on the Republican side. As you know, we have a primary election in the next week or so, and so we want to obviously encourage you, if you're a Republican, to get out and vote. And we have some great candidates, and I'm really happy to bring on Mike Harmon with us right now. And so who's I'll call you Auditor Harmon, and so because you are an auditor. You have what's the office again? You mentioned it.
The official title is Auditor of Public Accounts. That's the constitutional officer term.
There we go. But it's not related to the IRS, are they? Right? This is not a.
No, we're not the IRS. We're your auditor. We make sure government is efficient, effective, and ethical.
That's right. You're
and
our
do our
auditor.
best job.
That's right. You're our auditor. You do. That's
exactly.
Great. Okay. Very good. Well, we're excited to have you on, and we have Bob Scott, of course, with us as well, helping us do some interviews. So Mike or Auditor Harmon, we just had a debate the other night, and there was a lot of arrows flying back and forth between Cameron and Kraft, and which are perceived as the front runners in this race, but. There's 12 candidates running. I think there was maybe a handful on the stage of the night. And I don't think you were there on the most recent debate. There was a debate prior to that you were on, but what makes you feel like that a campaign like yours could really get traction in this primary and with so many folks in the race so what are your thoughts on that? Does your campaign have a solid chance to get the nomination and move forward to the general?
Definitely. I mean, some people put their faith in polls and piles of cash, but I put my faith first in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and then secondly in the people of Kentucky to kind of see through all the noise. People who know me know of my 2015 race where I only had $45,000 going against Adam Edlin, who had $800,000. Rachel Maddow described as the next up-and-coming Southern Democrat, but God blessed us, and I became the first Republican since 1967 to be elected to auditor back in 2015. Prior to that, I served 13 years in the Kentucky House, and when I was elected to that position, I was the first Republican elected since in 102 years. And so it's one of those things where God's always seemed to take what little I have and stretch it and make it larger. We're going to praise him whether we win or lose, but I've been out there longer than anybody. I was the first to file my letter of intent, and I'm the grassroots candidate. I've been out there burning up the roads and burning up tires and cars too. So
that's awesome. So you've come from behind before, and it certainly made some waves in politics in the past. So yeah, there's certainly a chance. And so, well, tell us about your campaign. So what makes you unique from the other candidates out there, for other Republican candidates? Well, why would you vote Mike Harmon versus Daniel Cameron or Ryan Quarles or?
Sure. Well, of everyone in the race, I have the most experience, have 13 years in the House, and will be 8 years as auditor when I'm finished. And I encourage you to go back and look at my voting record while I was in the House. I was always rated either the most conservative or one of the most conservative in the House. I jokingly say we fought woke before fighting woke was actually, popular. And I remember there was one time that, there was an attempt to require every young lady to have the HPV virus vaccine. And we fought against that. We stopped that. Of everyone in this race, of course, I have the endorsement of the Kentucky Right to Life. I have the endorsement of Northern Kentucky Right to Life. And I'm the only gubernatorial candidate that has the endorsement of Freedom Heritage Forum. I encourage you to check out the information in our voter guide. I'm the only one in that guide that is listed as verified conservative. So I think when people take a look at me, they look at my conservative credentials. I think they will definitely vote for me. But even though I'm, probably the most conservative individual in this race, I've also been able to make that bridge between other people. I mean, in 2015, when I ran, when 2012, when I ran for re-election to the state house, there was a survey done, and I had broad spectrum support. I even had 11% of self-professed liberals say that they supported me. And I'm sure that's not because I had any liberal tendencies, because I was always very conservative. I'm sure it's because I'd always treated people with respect. And if someone called me up, I didn't ask them if they were, Republican or Democrat. I said, well, what do you need? Let's see if we can get it worked out.
So I'm glad you said that. This is considered a red state, right? It's considered conservative.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so, but, Andy Beshear is our governor. And so there is a chance that Democrats can win statewide office, and obviously. And so, so it's important to be able to reach across the aisle. So, and I appreciate that instinct. And we asked this question of Ryan Quarles about, a good portion of our Commonwealth lives in the major cities in this state, and they're Louisville and Lexington and Bowling Green and a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans who live there are kind of chafing under these regimes, so to speak, of these. The crime wave that's going on, I think, can be directly related to some of the policies and governing that we've had over the past few decades. So, what can a governor do, a Republican governor do, to help rein in some of these municipalities in our state that are leaning left and are going woke and not protecting the cities living? Because listen, if we don't, this state. We know this. Louisville and Lexington are economic engines for the state, but yet they're going to fall apart. I mean, people are leaving these cities right now, and so something has to be done on a statewide level to address this. So, what can a governor do to help restore our cities, some sanity in our cities?
Well, sure. And I think the big part is we need to turn our folks back on multiple. I mean, I feel like we have got a crisis of faith in family. I mean, you look at it, the family unit is deteriorating. You look at the people of faith that are deteriorating. We don't have as many people going to church, and we don't have as many people that are, serving the Lord. I will say in the governor's role, there's a lot of things that we can do. But the other thing is, of course, you mentioned Louisville and the larger cities, and yes, we need to put our focus on those. But when I travel to the east, the people in the east say they're forgotten. When I travel to the west, the people in the west say they're forgotten. And we've got to make sure we don't forget any individual or any part of this state. And I've made a history of, bridging those gaps. Like I said, when I was the first Republican elected to the state house in 102 years, when I was first elected to the state house, and that was in a time frame when it was only 25% registered Republican. First Republican elected auditor since 1967. And I went in there and I told everybody, we're not going to target anyone. We're not going to give anybody a pass. We're simply going to follow the data. And we've referred Republicans and Democrats alike to law enforcement over the years. So I think what people really want is they want someone that's going to be fair. They're going to follow the data, as we say. From a standpoint of the crime standpoint, we've got to enforce the laws that are on the books, and we've got to make sure that if people break the law, we have to enforce that. But the other thing is, once they've served their time, we need to make sure that we help them, get not only rehabilitated, but help them, find a job and help them find a place to live and help them find transportation. And that doesn't mean we pay for it, but we just help coordinate things like that, because the two things that are most important to keep people from, committing additional crimes is, one, having a job, and two, having a place to live.
Well said. I'm going to play this clip from the debate the other night, and you made a pretty interesting point that I tend to agree with. So here we go.
Harmon.
Yeah, I think it was Benjamin Franklin that they asked, what type of government do we have? And I think he said it was a republic if we can keep it. So that's important to keep in mind. During the debate when they were removing some of the powers of the governor just recently, they asked me, if you're a governor, do you care that they removed it? And I was like, no, we don't need a king. We need a governor. We do not need a king. When I was first elected to the state house, was first Republican from Boyle in 102 years. And part of that was because the state, well, for me, is because you treat everybody with respect. The area was only 25% registered Republican, but you treat everybody with respect. But here's the thing, I loved being in the State House because the State House is the representative that is closest to the people other than your local government. When I was elected state auditor, I was the first Republican elected state auditor since 1967. So it's important for the people's voice to be heard.
Well said. So we need a king. We need a governor, not a king. And so I think
We need a
that's-
governor, not a king.
So are you referring to someone that might be in office currently? Is that so? In other words, Andy Beshear's been ruling as a king, not a governor. And so, so tell us about if you do get nominated as a Republican candidate. What would that general election look like? How would you take on Andy Beshear? I think there's a hint there of how you would do it.
Sure. Well, I would take on Andy Beshear the same way that I've been taking him on all during this primary. You know, in this primary, unfortunately, some have decided to focus their fire on people within the primary. I've continued to focus my fire on Andy Beshear. I mean, he was the governor that basically shut down our businesses. He was the governor that, when he shut down his businesses, he shut down our in-person unemployment offices to make it impossible for people to get their employment. But most importantly, he was the governor that shut down our churches, tried to tell us how we could worship our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and he sent the state police to enforce it. So we need a governor that's going to focus on freedom over fear, not fear over freedom. And even though I told you earlier that I'm the most experienced, I am, but I'm not really a polished politician. But if you want someone who, you know, loves the Lord and loves his family and loves this country, and in that order, well, I hope you'll think of me, Mike Harmon. And if you want someone that's fought for your freedoms, your liberties, your conservative values, really all my life, but politically for the last 20 plus years, I hope you'll think of me, Mike Harmon. And I think if people see that, if they see the fighter that's out there, but also the person that has a calm, level, experienced head, that clarity, that wisdom, I think they'll know that we can win this fall. And what I tell everybody is, I really do think I'm going to be the nominee. But if I'm not, I'll be first in line to support who our nominee is, because we've got one goal in 2023, one goal, and that's to make Andy Beshear one-term governor. That has to be our goal.
Well said. Bob, you'd like to ask our guest a question? Yeah.
Yeah, and Mike, I've known Mike for several years, and he took the words right out of my mouth, because I think a key, it doesn't matter, there are several great candidates that are running right now. Mike is one of them. You know, we are blessed to have some great Christian conservative leaders. And that's one thing about Mike I've always been impressed about is not only is he a smart, savvy guy, but he truly loves the Lord. He is the real deal when it comes to his relationship with Jesus Christ. And I don't think that gets said enough in our society and in our politics, because, you know, at the root of everything, our foundation is our relationship with Christ. And that's one thing I know, if Mike is blessed enough to get elected, he would do that. And let's take that a step further, Mike. If you are elected, what are some of the things you would like to do or implement within your first year of office? What would be some of your main goals?
Sure. Well, I want to continue to work with the General Assembly to eliminate the state income tax. I think that makes us less competitive with states like Tennessee, Texas, Florida. As mentioned earlier, you know, I've traveled to the East, and people in the East say they're forgotten. Travel to the West, people in the West say they're forgotten. So we want to make sure we don't forget any part of the state. And then thirdly, we want to empower our parents in their education. And to give you an example, it's more than school choice, but it definitely includes school choice. You know, my mom taught in Christian education for 20 plus years. And there was not a child that came out of her kindergarten class that she made sure they knew not only how to read, but how to read well. And, you know, a lot of times public schools will say, well, the Christian schools just get the cream of the crop. Well, she had some students that, you know, had some concerns, but a matter of fact, some of them had been failed by the public schools, but mom always made sure that they knew how to read and read well. And we need that same determination, that same drive to help every child reach the fullest extent of their ability as opposed to some arbitrary floor that we see. And part of it would also include restructuring, one, firing Commissioner Glasscock, but also restructuring our state school board again. You know, when Bevan came in, he did that. When Andy Beshear came in, he did that. The next governor needs to do that as well. And I would want to put people on there, definitely people from, public education, but we need people that have worked with homeschooling. We need people that have worked with private Christian schools, parochial schools. Because listen, our education system, our public education system should be about educating our children. The children should be at the top of that educational pyramid. So those would be some of the goals that I would have because, those are our children and it's important for us to protect them.
And I think that Senate Bill 150, which just got through the legislature, is a very important, I don't want to say first step, because there's been other steps that
Sure.
have been taken by our legislature. And I think that's an interesting point you and Commissioner Quarles would bring if you all were elected, because you both have served, in the House and have seen it from that perspective. And I think that is something that is absolutely sorely needed because there is a supermajority of conservatives for the most part, and I very carefully say the most part, in the House and the Senate. And I'm looking forward to whoever gets elected. And what I want to see happen is whoever is elected in the primary is going to come out and have strong support from all of the other candidates to, as you said, make Beshear's current regime a one-term, regime as well. So God bless you for stepping forward, and we're just blessed again to have folks like yourself that are running, and just pray that God's hand will continue to be on you and guide you.
Thank you. And you talked about Senate Bill 150. I call that because by the time it got done, it had multiple ones wrapped into it. I call that our Save Our Children Omnibus Bill.
Right.
We certainly have been thankful, one, that it passed, two, that our supermajority overrode Beshear's vetoes. That never in my life, we dealt with a lot of woke stuff and indoctrination stuff when I was in the House, but never in my life thought we would be arguing over whether we should cut parts off our minor children.
Yes.
It just blows my mind.
Nuts.
Saddens me greatly.
And Tom and I were talking about that before we came on the air. These are issues that absolutely 100% need to be discussed and brought to the forefront. This insanity must come to an end, and for the sake of our future, not for just Kentucky, but the United States of America, to even think about some of the things that are being done and applauded and lifted up as being normal needs to be reeled in. And again, it's great to see candidates like yourself that are willing to step to the forefront and say the things that need to be said.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I remember.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I remember when I was in the House, there was a big push to try to pass what they were calling an anti-bullying bill, which sounds good on the surface, but if you actually read it, it dealt really as much with indoctrination as anything else. And so I was in the minority all 13 years, but I was always hanging an amendment that said something to the effect, nothing in this bill shall be shall be misconstrued to require someone to teach or be taught something in direct contradiction to their personal religious beliefs. Very First Amendment friendly, but I got called everything from wanting kids to be beat up to all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And the Democrats wouldn't call up that bill because they knew that a lot of their members or some of their members would vote for that amendment. And then with that amendment on it, it would do what the surface said, anti-bullying, but it wouldn't do what they really wanted, was indoctrinate our children.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we appreciate your work, throughout your political career on these topics, because really the states are now the front lines on these issues, on these cultural issues, and so a governor or a state legislature, they really have more say on these sort of issues and have more impact on families and than even federal office holders. And because the way our country's emerging, you're basically going to have two different types of states, a blue state or a red state, more liberal
Right.
states where they have these certain types of values, more red states, conservative states that have others. So, so we need strong state leaders that are standing up on these issues, and we thank you for doing that. And with that, we're out of time, but we really appreciate your time and showing up on here on the station, and we wish you the best with the campaign. And if you are, if we encourage everyone who's watching, if you're a Republican, get out and vote. Get out and vote for one of these great candidates, and you have a wonderful option here, and Auditor Mike Harmon. So please consider his candidacy. So, Mike, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. If anybody needs additional information or would like additional information, MikeHarmon.com, MikeHarmon.com. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you, and God
Good
bless.
deal. You're watching the station. We'll see you next week.